Welcome. Thank you. So as you heard, there are nearly 11,000 of you in this room today. 51 of you are pioneering members of the first ever Charter Corps of 1990. Brave souls. 1,000 of you hail from the 2008 Corps alone. 1,500 of you alumni are teachers. I heard from actually 2 of you in the last 2 days that you have been teaching for 20 and a half years. Thousands of you are working or studying in the field of education and in policy, law, medicine, media, and other fields critical to shaping our policies and our prevailing ideology. We have with us 3,000 Corps members who made the time to be here despite being in the midst of what many in this room appreciate is the most intense and demanding 2 years a person can spend. We have hundreds of national and regional board members and generous philanthropists who have helped us reach this moment. We have staff members who are not alumni but bring critical perspectives and experiences to make Teach for America stronger. Hundreds of partners and special guests are here to advance our thinking and help us fulfill our potential as a force for change. And almost 200 members of the Teach for All community are here to cheer on the folks at Teach for America and learn from our experience to inform similar efforts in countries around the world. Thank you all so much for making the effort to be here today. The reflecting, sharing, challenging, and supporting we do on this one day can play such a catalytic role in ensuring that we do, in fact, reach the one day we are most focused on, the day when all of our nation's children have the opportunity to attain an excellent education. It is remarkable to realize how much progress we have made toward this vision in 20 years. And it is humbling to realize how much further we have yet to go. 20 years ago, there was little evidence that we could provide children in low-income communities with an education that changed their academic and life prospects. We all knew that some children could beat the odds, but the prevailing notion, backed up by the research at the time, was that on average, socioeconomic background predicted educational outcomes. In reflecting on how far we've come, I've often remarked that one of the hit movies when I was graduating from college, Stand and Deliver, memorialized the heroic efforts of Jaime Escalante. I now realize I should have tried to understand what Jaime Escalante was doing differently so that we could train and support Corps members to teach that way. But like many, I assumed his success was a product of charisma and something elusive. Now, however, 20 years into this, we have much more insight into what he and other teachers who put low-income students on a different trajectory are doing differently. 2 years ago, Teach for America Corps member Megan Brousseau followed in the tradition of other highly successful urban teachers. She walked into her classes of 112 ninth graders in the South Bronx, most of whom were low income, had learned English as a second language, and were significantly behind academically, and said to them, "This is your chance to make history." She charged them with the goal of taking and passing the biology regents exam, something that few students in the Bronx do. With a lot of hard work, they met their goal with an average passing score of 81%, nearly 10% higher than New York City's average. Megan's students proved to themselves and to others that they should be on a college track. Megan set her students up. Megan set her students up to make history, first by defying the odds academically, and over time, by attaining an education that enables them to help shape our collective future. It is hard to do what Megan did, but we have learned that there is nothing elusive about what it takes. Megan, like Jaime Escalante and the growing number of transformational teachers who are helping put their students on a different trajectory, approached their work like the most successful of leaders. She established a vision of where her students would be at the end of the year that would make a meaningful difference in their lives. She inspired her students to own that vision and to work incredibly hard to reach it. She put forth immense energy and discipline in planning her days, reflecting, assessing, and readjusting so that she maximized her time. And ultimately, she did whatever it took to reach her goal, even when it meant calling a dozen kids to get them to come in the morning, or spending hours with them of extra time in the mornings and the afternoons of extra tutoring, or convincing almost all the kids to come to school on Saturday. Now, there are only so many Megans who can teach this way. It is incredibly hard and so difficult to sustain. Thankfully, we've also learned, though, over the last 20 years, that we can foster the impact of successful teachers and make the work more sustainable by creating what I would call transformational schools. On the theme of hit movies from 20 years ago, there was another one called Lean on Me, in which a principal supposedly transformed East Side High in Paterson, New Jersey. But he didn't. The last I looked, East Side High was number 311 out of 316 public high schools in the state of New Jersey in terms of academic outcomes. The principal restored discipline and order, and yet the educational outcomes didn't change. I don't think that movie could get made today. Because today, we know it is possible to transform not only the culture of schools, but the academic trajectory of our students. I think we can fairly say that three of you in the room today, Dave Levin, Mike Feinberg, and Chris Barbick, conceived of the principles undergirding the growing number of public charter and traditional public schools that are doing this, and that you all and hundreds of others in this room have played a crucial role in growing their impact, their number, and expanding their impact. I've visited many of these schools, including the North Star Academy in Newark, New Jersey. North Star's results are comparable to those of the very best elementary schools in the state of New Jersey, irrespective of students' economic background. As I walked down the halls of this school, I was blown away to see the writing of the kindergarten class, writing in both English and Spanish. Let's just say that it quite dramatically outshone the student work on the walls of my own kids' elementary school on Manhattan's Upper West Side. We can clap for that. Every year now, in urban and rural communities across the country, there are more and more schools that are accomplishing similar results. 20 years ago, no one would have believed this would be true, that we would have dozens, hundreds of whole schools here in DC and in New York, in Newark and Philadelphia and Baltimore, and Los Angeles and Oakland and San Jose, in the Mississippi Delta and the Rio Grande Valley, and Eastern North Carolina and many, many other places in between. We know what these schools are doing differently, and once again, we've learned that there is nothing elusive about it. North Star's leader, Teach for America alumna Julie Jackson, has embraced a different mandate than most of our public schools embrace. Like Megan, she aims not simply to put learning opportunities in front of students, but rather to put them on a different path than their socioeconomic background would predict. And she puts forth the same kind of extraordinary effort and uses the same strategies in reaching that goal that it takes to attain very ambitious outcomes in any endeavor. She obsesses over recruiting and developing a strong team of teachers. She builds a powerful culture to invest and align the kids and the families and the staff in the same mission. She manages aggressively, ensures continuous improvement, and again, does whatever it takes, expanding the school's time and services as necessary to meet the end goal. Today, we know something we didn't know 20 years ago. We know we can provide children facing the extra challenges of poverty with an education that is transformational. As a nation, it is of course true that we should do everything we can to reduce the challenges of poverty. And in fact, mitigating poverty is one critical way to bring us closer to our vision. But now we also know that we don't need to wait to eliminate poverty to ensure that all of our nation's children have access to the kind of education that will ultimately give them a way out of poverty. So today, we're asking a different question. We aren't asking whether we can make a difference through education. Instead, the question is, how can we ensure that all children have access to an education that unlocks their full potential? Even to that question, we have seen amazing progress in the last few years. 5 years ago, if we had asked our most informed educators and policy leaders to agree on a list of the hardest to change school systems in America, certainly we would have had a big debate, but certainly we would have agreed that New Orleans and Washington, D.C. were near the top of the list. Today, in some significant part because of the inspiring efforts of many alumni, many folks in this room, these are two of the fastest improving school systems in America. Again, the reasons for their success are not elusive. Where school systems are changing in meaningful ways, their leaders are once again deeply committed to changing lives. They know that incremental change is not enough, and they act on an understanding that success is not elusive. They focus on attracting and developing and empowering school-based leadership and teachers to do whatever it takes to attain transformational results. The successes in New Orleans and DC and that of other improving systems like New York City's, systems that 10 years ago were thought impossible to move, should fuel our collective sense of possibility. On top of all this, today we are witnessing unprecedented levels of policy change at the district, state, and federal level to act on the lessons of high-performing schools and changing school systems. We have state laws, like the one passed recently in Colorado thanks to alumnus Michael Johnston, and the many who supported him in the effort, which is foundational in enabling districts to develop exceptional teachers and principals and to empower them to attain results. What we've learned about transformational education and how to replicate it, the progress we've made in growing the number of transformational schools, the systems and policies that are changing, this is stunning progress for 2 decades. And yet, the reality is that we have not yet made a meaningful difference against the problem we're addressing in an aggregate sense. Still, in the aggregate, the achievement gaps in our nation remain the same as they were 20 years ago. To realize our vision, we will need to build on all that's been learned, the incredible progress that's been made to dramatically increase the pace of change. What will it take to do this? I have my opinions, but today I'm going to leave it to you all and our panelists to figure this out. But I am going to share one observation. Wherever we see change that is transformational for students, that has a meaningful, not an incremental, but a meaningful impact on their academic and life trajectories, wherever we see it, we see transformational leadership. If we truly center ourselves in the lessons of the last 20 years, we will see no way around that fact. Whether at the classroom level, or the school level, or the system level, or the policy level, the kind of change we need rests on people who know and believe what Megan Brousseau and Julie Jackson know and believe, who deeply believe in their students, who understand what it takes to set them up for success, and who are willing to step up and lead to ensure they fulfill their true potential. Wherever we see transformational change in education, there are individuals who have the conviction, insight, experience, and determination that comes most often from having taught successfully in urban and rural communities. Ultimately, attaining the change we need is going to require transformational leadership at every level, inside our classrooms, at the school level, and at the system level, in our communities, in our unions, at every level of policy, and in the professional sectors that influence our policy makers. Anything less buys us incremental change at best. And in the face of a problem of the magnitude and consequences of the one we're addressing, one where whole communities put more children into prison than into college, there is only one morally acceptable option. Incremental change is not enough. We need transformational change. This means that Teach for America and our supporters and our alumni have a special responsibility. For Teach for America, we must continue to grow. We must become more racially and economically diverse to increase our success in the short run and to have any chance at success in the long run. We must increase the impact of our core members so that they become a force of transformational teachers for their students and in the process gain the foundational experience necessary for effective long-term leadership and advocacy. And we must find ways to foster and support and accelerate the leadership of our alumni in areas that we know are pressing and critical to the broader effort. For you in this room who are alumni, or soon to be, we must depend on you to maximize the impact you personally have in moving all of us toward our shared vision. You and the other successful teachers and former teachers in our schools and communities are better equipped than anyone to take us forward. Today, thanks to what we've learned over the last 2 decades, we have an unprecedented opportunity in the history of our nation. If we make the most of it, the students who overcome poverty to realize their full potential will grow up to become some of the most inspiring leaders our nation has ever known. Leaders who have the strength of character that comes from succeeding in the face of extraordinary challenges, and who have the kind of education that will enable them to solve the other problems we face as a society. we can enable children in urban and rural schools to make history. The question is simply whether we will. And we in this room, and the thousands of others who couldn't be here, can work alongside many others in urban and rural communities to determine the answer to that question. It really is up to us. Thank you.